Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's FPV Podcast. We got a special pilot coming in today. One of the DRL pilots is finally on to be able to talk to you about 2017. But before we get into that type of discussion, Elvin, why don't you say hello?
Hello, everybody. Hope you guys out enjoying the weather and enjoying the time of the year. It is a great time to fly all over the U.S. and the rest of the world.
Definitely. And we have Gil today joining us for DRL and also just any sort of flying that he does because he enjoys all types of flying. Gil, please introduce yourself.
Hey guys, my name is Gilbert Coronado, also known as 32BitsOfGil in the drone racing universe. Been flying for about 2 years now. I started, racing drones, stuff that I built myself, ZMR 250, something I'm sure many of you are very familiar with.
Yep.
And it has, it's been a long journey, but it hasn't really felt like it. I can say that I've learned quite a bit.
Pretty awesome. So let's go ahead and get a little bit into your background. Now, you mentioned the ZMR 250, which is like the granddaddy of all the quads. Is that where you started off? You just saw a video and you says, all right, I got to get into this. I'm off on my way.
Well, I think like a lot of guys in the sport, I got into drone racing off of, YouTube videos and little well-known YouTubers that now are, kind of high profile in the scene. Back then, their videos were getting like 200-300 views and a couple of likes and stuff like that. But one of the YouTubers I follow, Bruce, he's a guy out of, I believe, New Zealand. Yep. He's a solid pilot. He does a lot of fixed wing and stuff. And he produced this video series on how to build a budget mini quad. Yeah. And it was like just a very basic ZMR 250 sized, 5-inch motors with just very budget pieces you could buy off of Hobby King and stuff like that. And that's what I did is I followed the video after watching guys like Charpu and Final Glide Os and Mr. Steele, all those guys who were really just those early on pilots. I really wanted to be part of that, and that budget build was sort of something that I could justify to myself, like as a hobby side thing, something I might just mess around with and destroy, but not really lose anything if I lost it all. And it wound up obviously being something much more than that.
Don't worry, we know that computer next to you costs probably about like $3,000. So dropping $500 isn't too bad.
Wait, don't forget the 3D printer right next to it. Don't.
Well, there's another one. If I lean further back, you can see the one in the back is for TPU, and then I've got a PLA printer as well.
Look at this. This guy is just
real
one of those guys. He's the guy you call up. Hey, I need something printed, man. I need something printed.
I do a lot of prints for my friends because it's so cheap to just do it, and we all fly relatively the same stuff. So
that's pretty cool. So once you got into the ZMR, how did you get into the racing? What caught you into that little bug?
I had known that racing was a thing early on, and in fact, I wasn't really interested in it. The reason I really wanted to get into FPV was because of all those freestyle pilots that I had been watching on YouTube and such, and to watch what they were doing. Back then, they were doing stuff that, you would consider like still pretty good, just not that hard to accomplish when it comes to modern day equipment. But when you talk about the handicap of last, 2 years ago equipment, like what they were doing at the time was really impressive and stuff that obviously had never been on YouTube or the internet before. So guys like me, real young, obviously didn't have a lot to do outside of going to work, just pick it up and and sort of run with it. So to go from that ZMR frame, having that, I think I quickly felt the shortcomings of it. I especially was really bad at basic things like soldering and building electrical circuits. I definitely burned some stuff. The first time I tried to build a drone, had to buy like 3 transmitters, I think, before I finally got it working.
I know the stories.
Definitely. If you guys are struggling in your first build, don't worry. We were all there.
Hey, one of my friends just found out that you don't take the antenna off the transmitter. He done it 3 times. He grabbed the radio, turned it on. And he's like, what, why is my range so short? But it happens, right? Everybody, we all can agree.
You learn. You learn the hard way.
Alone. It's better to have a broken antenna than no antenna.
Truth.
Yeah.
Truth.
True.
Now,
or just a dipole.
Yeah, exactly. So now before DRL, you actually had quite a degree of success. You know, you've been to nationals, you've been to drone worlds. How did you get there? Was it, you're just naturally good at racing, or did people kind of like want you on their teams and you kind of just, really fit into the groove of a racer?
Well, back then, the scene obviously looks a little bit different. There's a lot of small companies in the game trying to make a buck off of a market that's mainly dominated through Chinese companies, and as well as some at the time early American companies like Get FPV that were reselling goods through China, and obviously to make a profit in the United States. So the market was really harsh for these companies, and sponsorships and stuff like that. Obviously the things that help grow pilots and turn that hobby into a career, that wasn't really there. So that support system was really hard to come by. And I think I knew in my time when I started racing, I think I knew exactly one pilot who earned a regular paycheck, albeit not a supporting, like, feed your family paycheck. That was, rare, if, one of a kind thing.
Who was that? Do you remember?
He's a really good friend of mine. He is actually no longer with that company that was paying him, so I don't really want to
no problem
pin specifics on him, but just want to point that out. Like, at the time, it was a really harsh environment for anybody to sort of grasp a hold of this. The idea of a career was still kind of far off. And I think that when you look back, like some of the guys that I looked up to early on, some of them don't even race anymore. Right. Some of them got kids, got busy, stuff like that.
Right.
So it's definitely, it's definitely changed a lot. And the guys who are still there these days, some of the best pilots, out. The guys that I thought were exceptional when I started, I race with regularly now, and it's amazing how good they are. And it's amazing how hard I have to work to keep up with them. When you talk about like just struggling and, you're flying as fast as you can and like you're still in last place,
Right.
Like you, especially when you get to a point where you've been flying for a little while and you're getting a little bit better than maybe the local community. That kind of is a shock when you come to fly with the real competition. So, I can definitely say that there was a sort of an upcoming back then of pilots now that are recognized and, obviously on TV and stuff like that. But back then, the first company that sort of said, oh, we want to stand behind Gil was Flynoceros. Custom racing frames. If you've ever heard of those guys, they've got a spec frame and stuff like that for multi-GP. I fly said spec frame before it was a spec frame.
Nice.
It's definitely a solid company. They've been with me since the beginning. Just one single guy, Josh Ingram, out of New Braunfels, Texas. He works his butt off, like 18-hour days, just to run a tiny frame company, and so much so that he lost his job as well. Working as a computer programmer because he wasn't working enough.
Oh yeah.
So he's definitely a full-time man now. But if you want to check his frames and stuff out, the flynoshop.com, he's definitely got a sweet selection. I fly the Cerberus just because it's been my frame forever. I've got a frame with 32 bits of Gil cut into it. But we're working on new stuff. We've got ultralight 6-inch that I've got over here somewhere. I may reach for it at some point. But I've also been flying the Skull for long range, which I actually just lost in a crash due to video.
That sucks.
But I have some really cool video from it That's going to be coming out soon from both Colorado and hanging around here doing some go-kart flying as well.
Nice.
So be on the lookout for that video from Flynoceros. Also, well, another company is we got video coming out from. I'll tell you in a bit. But Flynoceros,
busy, eh?
They took me under their wing and definitely helped me get started. When, like I said, back then it was really harsh to get started, and so any little thing helped. He was giving me frames when it came to me representing him in a fair manner. Going to races and doing well and such like that. Then he also managed to get us like group buys and stuff like that because he could reach out to manufacturers and get things we needed. So if I was like, oh, I need like 10 red bottoms, he'll go buy 100 from Emacs and then sell it to me at the dealer rate and then sell the rest of them on his website. And yeah, so that was kind of the early days of how I was managing to get from race to race with somewhat working quads.
Yeah, you got to do it however you can, right? That's the name of the game.
That's for sure.
Gotta hustle.
Yeah.
But like when you at those large events, nationals, worlds, whichever one you prefer, and you're racing against, the top pilots in the United States, like, did you ever get a sense that you were going to be listed as one of the top pilots, or you always like, you question yourself on whether or not you belong there?
I mean, for example, I went to regional finals in my local region at MultiGP, which I couldn't believe I qualified for in the first place. I made it in because the guy who made it in just above me said he didn't want to race drones anymore. Like, that was the only reason they let me in. And because I knew our regional director or whatever, James Velo, shout out. I got into the regional finals and I was flying against this guy. I don't know if you know him, Brain Drain. He's fast, dude. He is so fast. And back then he was like the fastest, the most techiest guy out there. He was flying the equipment we're flying today like a year ago.
Right.
And he whooped my butt there, but I managed to qualify in the Series 60. That then I was like, oh, so if Brain Drain is the winner and there's a bunch of other brain drains across the country and I have to go to a competition to compete with a bunch of brain drains, like, how am I even going to do that? Like, I'm just from small town Austin, Texas. Yeah.
Hey, that's not a small town. I'm sorry to say.
Well, now not anymore.
Yeah.
But, I was thinking, this guy's way off from Kansas. What about guys from Colorado or guys from Florida or all these guys I've seen on TV or whatever from DRL, which was actually, out back then. So I didn't really know what to expect going into it, but I had basically, a couple of companies standing behind me. Electrify RC was another company that picked me up during that time. Really, I paid for myself to go to Nats after qualifying. My girlfriend stepped in and loaned me some money, and I manned it out there. And I didn't think I really was going to do well at all. So I just, put forth my best leg. And I remember practicing the regional finals track on the simulator for about 6 hours a day after work, after an 8-hour day of work. So it was like a lot of effort that I put into just kind of getting that line down for that regional finals track. I knew I would have to run to get qualified, and I ran 3.7s off the first 3 heats of 4. So Chris Thomas came over to me and was like, we're running late behind schedule. How many heats did you run? And I was like, 3. And he's like, what did you get in your heats? I told him 3.7s, and he was like, okay, go run your last heat and then go to the championship track because you're going to be qualified. And I was like, what?
You belong. You belong.
And then I got to practice the championship track for like the rest of the day, flying with some really, crazy pilots, and
best of the best.
Then
yeah.
Wound up doing really, really well at, all the way up to finals. I was just out of finals and semifinals. I think I crashed out because one of my spotter gave a wrong call. Of course, nothing on him, but it happens.
It happens. Yeah, but hey,
But
you know what? Yeah, go ahead.
That's what the performance that got me noticed. At that point, Race Flight stepped in, Preston Garrison stepped in and said that he wanted to sponsor me and send me out to XTC in Vegas, where I won XTC 3, and then from there, things, just kind of started rolling really quickly.
It only takes one, right? So, like, after nationals, it seemed like you gained a lot of confidence in yourself, and then that kind of just propelled you onto where you are today. Is that about right?
Well, after nationals, I kind of realized where the playing field was, at least in the United States. After watching Sean race, I was clearly, in need of some work to get to that level, especially knowing, like, guys like Brian didn't even make it to the finals, or the final 16, and I did, right? So I kind of understand who has a good day and who has a bad day, right? And when you have a really, really good day, like Sean Taylor seems to have at every big competition, then, that takes some work. So after that, I say more than anything, like, it motivated me to go home and start flying like every day, start flying after work. And so I stopped messing around in the sim and started spending all that time out at the field, which eventually led to like me dragging more and more crap out to the field to make sure that I could continue flying through the evening, even if I didn't have working quads.
Wow.
It sort of bled into, like a borderline addiction. I was bringing broken quads to my desk at work and repairing things at work so that I could spend more time flying after work, charging batteries and such like that, while like with my toes at my desk and stuff.
You gotta do what you gotta do, as long as you don't get caught, by your boss, right, and then getting yourself fired.
Well, that was the best part. Is eventually I got a job where my boss was completely cool with it, and so I was doing all sorts of whatever, repairing things and charging and all sorts of stuff, and he had no problem with it, because he knew right away. Like, I told him in the interview that, obviously I'm a drone pilot and I fly all over and such. And he was like, "Oh, that's really cool." And then I wound up getting like the DRL TV deal in the middle of that employment, and he knew all about it. And so he was just that much more on board at that point. Right. And he really stuck out for me to hold on to that job for as long as I did.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Hey, kudos to that person. What company was that?
I'd rather.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
But kudos to him for actually supporting you on that, because not a lot of companies will do that. It's like, what? You got other commitments? You're out of here.
No, it's not even other companies. It was just like every other corporate that I've gone through, because I work in IT for help desks as a previous career, and every company that I've gone to is pretty much the same, even big, small, whatever. It just comes down to basically who's your supervisor and who's their supervisor.
Exactly.
And that's about it. And I had two really great supervisors. They stuck their necks out for me too many times, and yeah. But hey, just like my good friend Josh from Flying Ostrich, you commit too much to one thing, it's not too hard to let go of what was.
Definitely. But now, so this is actually a good segue into the next segment. Now, after all of this, and you've gotten serious about racing, you kind of got a handle on what is required to be a professional drone racer. There's a lot of people that are asking these questions because obviously, being on DRL, being on TV, right, sounds like a really sweet gig, but I don't think people know the commitment levels and the challenges you go through. So you want to speak a little bit about that?
They think you rolling Dallas house, making it rain, baby, making it rain. They think you popping it everywhere you go.
Yeah, you would think. When they talk about, the winner gets 6 figures and all of that, but we all get paid. We all get a certain amount when it comes to coming to these races, and it's a regular paycheck. It's not like we just get a lump sum. At the end of the day, it's not like a paycheck you get from a job, right? You're not putting in 40 hours a week. You're not getting healthcare benefits.
Right.
You're not getting insurance.
Right.
You're not getting any of the the basic coverage stuff that you would get from an employer, and you're not getting, a dedicated company with a dedicated career path and all that stuff. So it's a huge leap for anybody that considers that, like an only source of income thing. I would strongly,
think about
condemn
it. Right.
that. Like that's not the reality. The reality is that most of these pilots have a secondary job,
Right.
or I should say a primary job, and they have a primary form of career, or some primary training or primary schooling. Myself, I'm just very fortunate to be in the position that I'm at. I can just barely afford to be where I am, and I'm okay with that. I'm not like you live in lavishly or anything, but it's not a big deal to me. Whereas some of these pilots are already like, fairly well off, so it doesn't really matter to them.
Right.
If they're not making any money, to that. And some of them have jobs that are clearly a little bit more important,
money,
or a little more, I don't know how you say, high level, more better training, more schooling, that kind of thing. So giving that up for something
higher pay
like
grade
drone racing is kind of like, I'll just go to work today instead of practicing. So it's not for everybody, right? It's not for the guys who are just like, I'd stay in my career, or I've taken care of my bills right now. It's certainly not an easy life either. So, you don't get paid a lot. You feel all this pressure when you go to a race because you're like, I got to win because this is my career. And if I don't win, I'm not really doing well at my career, right? So it's a whole nother level that you stack on top of yourself. Because when you go to a race and you're just, you're just doing it on your weekend, it's like, I hope I don't break my quad. Right. Because you're like, this is what I do for fun, and I'd really like to continue doing it for fun. And if you don't have a quad, it's kind of hard to do it for fun. When you're at a professional level, you're like, I hope I don't break my quad, because A, that means I have to spend more money, and B, I hope I win, because if I don't win, then that means I've got a net loss for this event. So it's a tough go between. So you see the guys that consistently do well because, like, for example, Brian Morris is a really good example. He goes in with a really good strategy. He plays the numbers, doesn't try to hot shot anything, puts himself in the best position to be in finals so he can have the best chance at winning some cash, which I admire. I think he's a very mature pilot and a very mature racer. And I don't see that in a lot of guys. I see a lot of, hot shot, fast, super speed kind of, and that's cool too. Like a lot of us have new equipment and it's easier to do that now than it was in yesteryear, but it doesn't win races all the time. It wins them sometimes.
Well, Gil, you can contest to this, right? That there's like a style of top 5 pilots. Let's just say the top 5 pilots in the world right now, they have a style to them. They don't come out of the gate right off the bat, wide open. They come out, let you know they're there, but they're not the first couple of laps. They're not trying to kill it, right? They start to kill it toward the end, where other guys are voltage sag is dropping off, and voltage is dropping off. They've maintained a nice, smooth, efficient flight, and now they can start to push it and push the end of the envelope and start passing guys when other guys are trying to make up for the time that they made those mistakes going too fast and overcorrecting and missing gates.
Absolutely. And I think you'll find more often than not that the more experienced pilot versus the pilot that has less experience, and I don't mean like flying, I mean like actually going to races, events, big things like that. You'll find usually the more experienced pilot will be able to maintain a more consistent pace when he's going through his runs, rather than somebody who's running, who's had a couple of wins and stuff like that. But when you talk about kind consistency and winning consistently and going fast consistently. The top 5 pilots, like you're saying, that attitude or that I guess that play style, that flying style that they take up, it is aggressive, it is fast, and I mean, I've seen some incredibly fast, smooth, very solid flying off of these guys who are the top of the top. But it's incredible to watch because they maintain control the entire time, you know. And if you go through and watch some, like especially some of these DRL episodes are excellent examples. When we get to the later stuff in the playoffs and the championships, you know, I can't really say much about, but I've seen some great racing in that area. I think we're going to see stuff exactly like you're saying. You're going to see pilots who are managing their aircraft, managing their momentum and their speed, and making sure that, you know, they're not blasting it around the track, but they're waiting until that one point where they know that specific person that's in front of them is weak and they can take advantage of them, right? And it takes that kind of consciousness, that kind of maturity and being awake while you're flying in order to make sure that you're consistently winning at a level like that, right?
And it takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of practice. And I've been telling a lot of guys lately that it's what I've seen so far in racing in the last 2 years is that those pilots that have the true skill, you know, they come out of the gate, you know, they're there, but they're not running wide open. Then there's those guys that come out to make an impression, right? They come out, they bust out of the gate, they hitting the whole shot, and they're around the track. They're trying to beat everybody around the first time, and then bing, you hear that noise.
And you hear the disarm. Yep.
Yeah.
Click.
And the spotter's going, you were going so fast. You
What
were like 10 seconds ahead. Why'd you? What?
Now you need a new motor, but that's a different story.
Yeah. Where'd your arm go?
So let's go ahead and get into some of the DRL stuff, because you've already participated in 2 that we can talk about, level 1 and level 3. Let's go ahead and get into level 1, Miami Nights. Now, that was a pretty gnarly track. I think one of the big differences between DRL and what you see in local racing, multi-GP racing, is that DRL likes to have these huge tracks that are just impossible for a local racer to do. So it's a completely different feel to it. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because you're talking about making only one lap, as opposed to, like, you know, when you go to a multi-GP race, you're expecting to do anywhere from 5 to 11, depending on the track length. How does it translate? Because it's got to be completely different.
Yeah, no, it's definitely completely different. It's a different style of flying as well. You know, you got to remember where you're going. You don't get a chance to just like run something like 30 times in a day, right? Because if you run 5 laps around a track, 6 rounds in a day, that you ran it a ton of times, right? But if you get 20 batteries, which is typically what we'll fly in an event, right? You get 20 batteries to fly a track, you know it pretty well. You know, 20 times to fly a track, that's pretty good, right? If you fly something, for example, in 3 practice rounds, you fly 5 laps around it, and you fly 15 times. Like, again, that's a decent amount of time that you get to know that, but in a much shorter actual period of time, right? So DRL, what they're best at is giving everybody a fair chance, making sure that everything is set out and as fair as possible. You know, obviously we don't lay hands on the drones at any point. They have an entire team dedicated to that, as well as a production team, a race ops team. You know, they've got a whole production media crew inside a truck that obviously is way too expensive for, you know, us to go even near.
One camera was probably more than what we do in a year.
So yeah, definitely. And what they're best at is making sure everybody's got a job and everybody knows what they're doing. And all we got to do is sit up on the podium and fly. You know, they say pick up the controller, put down the controller. That's it.
Wow.
And you would
Everybody
think
wants
like
to do that though.
Yeah,
Everybody
you would think like that's
do.
easy. That's know that's the best job on the house.
Oh,
but man, yeah, with all that's going on, and it's I don't know if you saw, but in Miami it was a little cold. That was back in January. It was pretty cold back in South Florida.
Yeah, we saw Gav, they had a highlight of him. He was in like 3 layers of coats, and I was like, okay, it's got to be cold for a Canadian to be wrapped up in 3 layers.
And they gave us jackets and long sleeve shirts, obviously, and all that. So, we were okay, but it was a little chilly night,
It's a little chilly night. So, like, when you get there and it's your first flight, even in practice, like, was there already pressure? It's like, I got to not crash out, I got to be able to learn this. It's like first time, and it's like a minute course, it's so new.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think I was one ship, right? You don't get one ship, right?
You get as many as you need. You can fly like every single one of your drones into a wall, and they will have a new one for you. Like, wow. There's no way that you're gonna run out.
I want that right now. Can you hook me up? Why? Come on, why? Hook me up.
Hey, I'm not DRL. What are you talking about? You gotta talk to this
guy. That means testing every single one. So we go through and we hover test every single one, and we check the video on every single one, and we adjust the cameras on every drone, all 300 of them. Yep. And that takes like a whole half a day. It's like the first day we get there. That's what we do.
That's a lot.
Trust me. Yeah. They do. They like to do interviews during that time. So there's one group that goes to test the drones, and the other group goes to the interviews. So it's like you want to be in the interview groups. You don't have to sit there and test 300 drones.
That's funny. So what is it like learning the course? Is it like go nice and easy, or does the walk around really help? Because like in Miami, it's got to be hard to walk around because there's so much verticality in that course.
Verticality.
Yeah, no, we walk around the whole course, so we get to see everything. It is hard to walk around. Sometimes we got to go, okay, now we got to turn around and go down this elevator, and then we'll go back up this spiral staircase, and we'll be on the next section of the course, which of course was like 10 feet drop, between where we were standing. Right. So, it was a little bit of running around, but obviously we get practice time in which everybody kind of putts around the course. I know I was like, like super nervous and like just trying to breathe properly going through my first time. But, in my head, I was sort of thinking like, I don't really understand how I got here, but I'm here now. So I better just fly it the best that I can and hope that I can, I wouldn't say prove myself, but at least put myself up on the board against these guys. And my main goal, or at least the thing that I was most focused on, sort of, trying to get to, was I just wanted to fly that track as many times as possible because it was so cool.
Definitely. It was a very cool track. It's actually really hard to follow when you're actually watching the event because like the connecting point A to point B when it's a completely vertical rise, it's like, where exactly is he going? I was like, I never could figure out how you pilots can learn that in a day. It's like,
I think they lacked a lot of FPV footage in that episode. I'm not sure why. They seem to do certain things like that, just depending on the quality of the footage that they get back after the event. Like you saw some FPV footage, like when I crashed into that cement barrier at the end, that and my GoPro was ejected into the cockpit area. That was like the only FPV footage I saw in that whole Miami scene. But then like we saw level 3, they were just FPV footage everywhere, and that was so much easier to follow because you were like, oh, they're flying this way. So next time they showed the third person, you knew, oh, that's a turn, and they're going through that turn to the next turn.
Now, so at level 1, one of your interviews was that you were confident that you were fast and that you were going to show them. Was that coached along, or did you actually feel that? Because you were the only rookie in that group to actually make it into the final. So I mean, there's got to be some element of skill to it.
I mean, I put in a lot of practice and I felt ready. Like I said, I tried to focus on just flying the track the best that I could and the longest that I could. If I stayed in the air the entire race, I just took that as a victory. Like that was good. I managed to fly the whole time. Of course, things changed a little bit in finals, especially where I was like, oh, I might have a chance to make first in this event,
yeah, that does change a bit, huh?
Yeah, so I can definitely, look back at that and say I learned a little bit from, especially what happened in the last heat with me slamming into the wall. but those kinds of things happen, and at that level, it is just like a split second, and that's it. You're gone. If you don't move your thumb the millimeter that it needs to move in the split second that it needs to, then you're done. That's it.
So, like, talk to me about the finals. You made it in. You were like the last person to make it in, and going into that, was there a strategy that you put forth to say, I got to get podium, and this is the strategy I'm going to use, or did you just go out there and says, I'm just going to do the best I can, keep it in the air?
Well, I was, like I said, kind of going by that strategy earlier, kind of keep it in the air, keep doing it, get to finals, and then I made it, and I was so taken aback by it that I was like walking out in the parking lot, while everybody was eating, I guess we would consider lunch, even though it was like at 3 a.m. And then, it was a night shoot, so we started at like 6 o'clock p.m. So, yeah. But when they were eating, I was just like, what am I gonna do? I saw Gab fly. How am I gonna beat him? That dude's like smashing records and stuff in practice, and I'm just, barely managing along. And then, it sort of got down to practice, or rather, it sort of got down to the finals event, and we got a couple of batteries to sort of warm up, and I felt good about it. The video, they made some changes to it from early on, and it was much better than in practice. It's like in semis, it was it was okay, and then it got really good in finals. Mm-hmm. So I felt confident going through it, and I just kind of threw myself at it. I was just hoping for the best, and for the first couple of runs, I think I like smashed into something and didn't do very well on the next run, and so I was pretty discouraged. And then I think it was the third or fourth heat or so, I was just kind of told myself, like, I have to step it up now, or I don't get a chance to continue flying, was sort of what I was looking at. And I didn't think like just, the next couple of events. I was thinking towards like, making it to playoffs, making it to the championships, and even to 2018 and beyond. So I needed to set a precedent, and that's when I flew really, really well. That's when I was like right behind Gab 707, and I started kind of following his line and watching what he was doing while he was flying, and I sort of picked out a couple of things that, not necessarily that he was weak at, but that he was doing well, just not as fast as I thought I could do it. And for example, when I ran that fastest, the record for that track, the goalpost turn, when you come down from the really long section at the gate at the top of the bowl, he was taking it really sweeping, which was fast, but he wasn't taking it underneath the goalpost. He was taking it like just around the goalpost. So what I did is I went underneath the goalpost, and I took it as tight as fast as I could, which was really scary, but I managed to get like a sizable lead in front of him. And then from that point, I was able to hold it because I cranked the angle up on my quad a little bit, especially in that power loop through that spiral. Through that power loop, having the angle really high up, I was able to just get it backwards and then just push it backwards like that. And I did that better than Jordan did. Jordan went like that, and then his angle was pretty low, and so he just kind of like went up into the ceiling because he just sort of yawed and tried to turn around like that instead of rolling.
That was actually one of the things in level 1 that was really interesting, was that going into the final heats, like pilots started changing their lines to pick up other people's fast lines, because like I think Jet was the first one to do the power loop, and then everybody else kind of just followed suit right behind him because they figured it would be faster, and everybody just at that point just wanted to win, I guess. Did you see that?
Yeah, you definitely see that. You see guys trying to follow like Gab and Willie's line through the bowl and stuff. Mm-hmm. But I think what was particularly notable was all the lines that we had come in like through the pilot area or where we were sitting. Anytime that you flew within audible distance, people would pick up your line because they could hear the sound of your motors. So if you're coming through way in front of them and you fly right past the cockpit and then you do the power loop like Jordan did, everybody catches on. They go, okay, he just power looped that, so I'm going to do it too. that's basically what happens, right? So
Okay.
any little advantage that you give away, there's somebody else that's going to take that and use it against you.
Now that's really interesting.
It's like the lock, you know what I mean? Like you turn in the tumbler, click, 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 click. Oh,
Well,
I figured out that. Click, click,
I
click.
know guys who talk about, you can hear when people flick switches. So if you hear somebody disarm during the race, you know what place you're in, because they're sixth, so you're at least in fifth, And so if you hear a couple more disarms, you're at least in third, right?
Right.
That's actually really smart, because sometimes, it's all about the points. You just got to finish to get enough points to stay in the top 3. And then usually, I think in almost all the races, no, not in all the races, like the last 2 heats determines podium. It hasn't been decided super early. No. So it's always been good. So any final thoughts on level 1 before we move on to level 3?
No, I mean, it was a great event. I was first night DRL event, and I think the only night DRL event. Super fun. I'd love to do it again.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's go ahead and you go ahead, Elvin. Let's go ahead and move to level 3. Now, level 3 was kind of an interesting one for you because we just watched it. The first heat, I mean, you killed it. You knocked it out of the park, except you wanted to go back. You couldn't stop flying. So, man, that was hard to watch, dude, because, you were really ahead. I mean, you were, at least 30 feet ahead of everybody. So, what caused that? Did you know the track and you just busted it out?
So there was a little bit of confusion in practice. We ran 3 laps, and during the semis event, we ran 2. I just mistake 3 for 2.
3 for 2.
Yeah. I just kept going, and didn't hear anybody yelling at me or anything. I was just in the zone doing my thing, and sure enough, I get most of the way around the track, and I hear people hitting the gate, and I'm like, oh no, I did that, didn't I? And you see me, they put me on TV going, oh no, I'll go hit the gate, no, and I go all the way around and hit it again. It was bad. It put me in 6th place. It was at least 20 seconds that I continued flying, so I know that I had way too much of a lead to just throw away. Now,
when I first watched that first heat, it was it looks like 32 bits. He's going to be a competitor in this one because you looked hot out there and you looked fast. What happened after that? Because I know for this particular track, it's kind of like some of the other multi-GP races I've been in, which corners and just obstacles just got in the way and people just crashed out because of the course. Was that ultimately what happened to you in level 3?
There was a lot of difficult elements to level 3. It was the smallest DRL track at the time, so to date. So I'll let you
what you conclude.
Think about that. Yeah,
it is true. It is very difficult because of the short corridors, and we saw so many pilots crash out. Was that one of the things that you saw during practice as well? Was a lot of people were struggling to keep their lines to try to make it through there at such quick speeds?
Definitely. And I know they showed it on TV, but we had a couple of incidents actually where people would miss turns and stuff like that. And you saw it quite frequently where somebody went just a little too wide or just a little too high or whatever and clipped the gate. But we had some instances where, for example, I did it during practice where I went straight into the gate and stuck because it's just it's a foam core type gate. So I managed to actually javelin style just stick right into it. And Nurk did it as well. He was coming around a wide turn and managed to stick into the gate with his GoPro still facing forward through the gate, so you could see other pilots fly around the track the whole rest of the race.
Oh man,
which was totally crazy. But with all of the crashing that was going on, I hit the ceiling at one point during practice and took a big chunk out of the ceiling. We were punching holes in floats left and right. Flying Bear took a huge chunk out of a float, like as big as the drone and a little bit bigger. It was pretty funny. A lot of crashing going on in that one. They also made a big change to their systems. Things got a lot better video wise. like a lot better. And it got to the point where like we weren't worried about it at all. Like it was so good that nobody had any complaints or anything. There was no more, no excuses or anything like that. It was like, if you crashed into something, it was because you were trying to go too fast.
Got it. That's pretty cool though. Now
that gets everybody.
Now, when you're like, this is something that you can't tell as an audience, but when you're flying, can you tell the color of the LED so you know who passed you or who you're right next to?
So the FPV feed is it's good clarity wise, but it's not always great color perfection wise. It's not like you're on a media production screen or anything like that. You're still on a CCD camera, and it still, has its limitations. But at the same time, obviously, when somebody's in front of you. It's a big blinding light that's going like this all over the place. So when somebody's in front of you, the other pilots in your heat, and a lot of the times the people who are on pace with you. So you can usually pick out if it's green or blue or yellow, or if it's really starkly contrasting. But if you've got like orange, yellow, red in a heat, there's not really any way to tell. Okay. It's just another guy in front of you. That's why you see a lot of us at the end of the races, we're all like talking to each other, because we're actually trying to find out what happened. Like we want to know actually who placed and who crashed and who.
Trying to put the story together, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody's little piece tells the story.
Exactly. And so like, because sometimes you can't tell, because like I can, like they'll cut into a story in which like they'll see the banter between back and forth is like, I know you were ahead of me and we were fighting back and forth, or we nicked each other, or we crashed out because of each other. Is there like specific strategies that you have for specific pilots when you fly, because they're always in front of you, or it seems like they're always in front of you during these type of events?
I mean, when you're talking about competition at that kind of caliber, you have to know the people you're flying with just as well as your own flying style. And that's really how you can take advantage of them when it comes to the actual competition time. Obviously, we're all friends on the show, so it's not like we're like going around like stabbing each other in the back or anything like that. But I mean, we all know generally how each other flies. And I would say that the best of the best come to the table, come to their heat, and understand maybe what the strategies of everybody else is going to be, and come up with their own counter strategy, right. And actually actively think about that stuff. If you just go into it and you're like, yeah, I'm going to fly my best and I'm just going to do what I can and stay in the air, like you're probably going to do well, but you may not win, right? Like the winners go in and say, this person is weak at this turn. And once I get in front of him, I know he gets kind of funky, because then he is not very good at following other people because he's always in front. And, you might be able to throw him off doing that. And then, like this person's kind of variable, whether or not, if I hear him crash out, then I know I probably should, try and win the heat because they've got a ton of points and I don't, or what, you know what I mean? So like it varies heat to heat. And that's why you see guys like Gab dominating in this sport, because guys like Gab, guys like Brian Morris, guys like Sean Taylor, they play the numbers, right? They go and play what is going to get them to finals, what's going to get them the win. And that's the maturity that I kind of talked about earlier too, right? Like you got to know what it takes to win and have the maturity to execute it, and not get greedy and not try and race somebody when you really don't have to, right? You're still racing yourself.
That's the hard thing to develop, because you what happens is, as you learn in the race, right? You knowing that you got to pass guys, you got to get in the front, and a lot of guys believe that you do that in the beginning of the race, right? And that is some people's style. They jump out front and then you chase them the rest of the race, and you wait for them to make a mistake so that you can get back in front of them. There is those guys, but then there's guys where they're looking at waiting for you to make your mistake. They're that one mistake, and they're going to capitalize on it because they've seen you do it over and over and over again. So they know when you come around to that power loop that you might be a little too big or too wide or too loopy, or you might snap it and just pull it back too quick and just flip it, right?
Yeah.
Now you got to recorrect.
Or even, they just they watch all your videos and they just know how you fly, and you know.
Hey, I'd do that too. It'd be like, yeah, I gotta know their flying style. I'm gonna watch everything that they put out.
Yeah, but you'll see the guys who are the most calculated, who put the most mental thought into their flights, put the the most practice time into that kind of stuff. You see those guys coming out on top consistently. You see them winning without luck, without other people wrecking out. You see them just dominating a good, hard race.
One of the things I wanted to let you guys know, Gil, you guys on DRL, you guys don't smile enough, man. You guys look like when you guys are doing bad, everybody knows it. Because your faces tell
a lot of stress,
story.
Man.
Yeah, but we know that. But you guys, I mean, we know. Like, we can look at you. I've seen your face and go, okay, dude, he's like under a lot of stress. He knows he's got to win this one. He's got to do better, And I think you guys are just you guys have your game faces, and your game faces are not the best faces.
Oh, no, that's me. No, that's me.
I know you guys are getting focused.
Hey, hold on. True or false? True or false? Gab has the best game face.
False. I think I have the best game face.
Oh, okay. I like that. I like that answer.
That's
Okay.
good. That's good.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay, so let's do some quick questions. This will be fun. You don't have to answer them if you don't want to. Who do you think has who do you think has the best raw talent? Like, literally, he can just get up, roll out of bed, and can like just crack down on a course.
Wow.
Zachary Thayer.
Zachary Thayer. Okay.
Yeah.
Who do you think is who do you think is the best strategist?
Gab 707.
Gab 707. Who do you think starts slow and finishes strong?
Jet.
Every time. Yeah, I kind of agree with you.
I would agree with that.
Nurk would have been my choice, but I don't know. Maybe I'm a little bit biased on that one. Who do you think is the well? Okay, hold on. I got to think of this. Of the rookies, who do you think has who do you think came in as the biggest underdog?
That's a tough one. Of the rookies, I think you haven't seen all of Duncan yet.
Duncan hasn't seen a lot. Yeah, I have not seen Duncan. A lot of Duncan.
I don't think you've seen the angry Duncan.
I guess not. I don't know.
They need to show angry Duncan on TV.
Be patient.
Seriously. They need to show angry Duncan on TV.
Okay, last question.
We missed that.
Last question. Who's the funniest?
That's easy. Willie's the funniest.
Yeah. I figured as much.
Willie's the funniest. And like he's a wild character. Like they play it up on TV, but that's how he is in real life. When you go to hang out with him, he's just this energetic, bouncing off the walls, always having fun, always, just doing his thing, never really worrying about whatever, just going with the flow. And like, I totally respect that. It's hard to be cool. Like that.
It is
all the time.
Takes a person out. You know what? Here's the thing. When I met Nick Willard here in Kentucky at Megadrone X, he was not like that. He was super conservative. But he's
changed quite a bit.
His confidence levels in the stratosphere.
When we saw him in Hawaii, he was a whole nother pilot.
Yeah, but his skill level has risen.
Working really hard too.
Yeah,
definitely. Okay,
he was circling. When we got to Hawaii, we were all underneath the tree, this little spot where we were all flying, and he literally had his quad 90 degrees tilt, flying around the tree, just and it went down. He picked it up, put another battery in, and went back at it again. It was just amazing just to watch him fly. He was so hardcore. Everybody was like, "Oh my God, that guy's going to be the winner."
There's a lot of people like that. Yeah. All right. Let me. Okay. One last question, and then we'll get off of level 3 and we'll move on. It's like at this point, we all know it's over. But like after level 3, what was your thought process going forward?
After level 3, I took some time just to kind of figure things out. Drank a lot of beer. And I kind of decided I had to go through sort of a process of, I guess, grieving, because at that point I considered it like my career, because I was a professional drone racer by title. So I wanted to put all of my effort into it, but I really wasn't putting in all of the time that I could, even though I was going out every day. I wasn't really giving it 100%. I wasn't going super hard on my practice and pushing myself in practice and stuff like that. Sort of just going out to fly every day. And then I got really serious with it. I stopped flying my 5-inch quads. I took out the Racer 3 every day and flew like 30 batteries on the Racer.
Nice.
And then got somewhat better at naturally handling the quad, because it was a little bit slower, a little different than my quad, obviously. So getting a handle on that, and getting a handle on just the overall flight style that you kind of need to adopt to move that thing very quickly. It has a lot of momentum because it weighs so much. It doesn't accelerate as quickly as like a 5-inch quad, for example.
Right.
But it maintains a lot of speed, especially if you treat it well and you maintain that momentum and that energy the best you can through corners and things like that. It rewards you very significantly. Yeah, right. And if you're rock solid like Gab does, right? Gab flies really solidly, so his flying style fits very well with the way you need to fly this to perform very well. So, if you're very smooth, you're fast, you're taking the turns high and exiting low and doing all of the fundamental things correctly, that drone rewards you for it.
Definitely, because
go ahead.
No, you have to carry that momentum. You can't stop that momentum. Otherwise, you're going to have to build it all back up through acceleration again. And that's very tough. That's very tough.
And there's so many examples in this show. If you just watch very closely, every time somebody flubs something, not even hits something or crashes, but just every time they go at something and they have to avoid it, or they maybe clip it, or whatever, anytime they start getting shaky on their runs, they lose time. They start losing position, or somebody just flies past them super fast. Like, even if it's just a little wobble as they're coming into the finish gate, that little wobble might be the 2-3 feet of difference that needs to happen for that person behind him who's already full tilt line straight at the gate to pass him. And it's things like that at this kind of level happen, not just occasionally.
Well, you said fundamentals. That's what's important. Is a lot of the pilots today don't really realize that there is, fundamentals about racing. There's momentum, there's inertia, there's learning how to throw those things into the game when you're racing to help you accomplish a cleaner line, a faster lap,
Absolutely. And I think it takes a certain mindset to understand that and to incorporate that while you're flying. Obviously I'm not sitting there calculating the barometric pressure of the field at the race that day and putting on the correct props and stuff like that. Like, I'm just guessing more or less, but I have done it enough times to where, like, if I go to a race and it's really hot outside and the track is a certain length and has these elements, I'm going to make an educated guess as to what equipment I'm going to use and all that. Like, that takes that certain race maturity to understand. And, a lot of guys out there right now, at least, don't really have that. A lot of them have the super fast race quad. A lot of them know how to push that throttle stick forward and then roll right and then push it again. And, they can fly those UTT tracks really, really fast because they've got a super light, super high speed quad. But when it comes to, like a real flowy, technical type long track, like we saw at MultiGP Nats last year, guys who were flying quads like that in that fight style aren't going to do as well as somebody with, for example, a slower Racer 3 like quad who's just flying it very smoothly through all of that and maintaining momentum and not having to turn around before gates and such like that.
Definitely pretty cool. And okay, let's go ahead and move on from DRL. Great conversation. Loved it, by the way. Some really great insights that you don't pick up during the TV series. But going forward, you've already said that you're really you're doubling down. You're committing to the racing. Is there anything else that you're doing for your future that you're trying to, make sure that you can actually make this into a career?
Yeah. Like I said, I've been getting really serious about it. Practice is obviously one thing, but the other side of it is how are you going to survive, right? Like, you can be the greatest pilot in the world, but let's face it, like, if races aren't being hosted, if the community just kind of dies off, you're on an island by yourself. You have a skill that means nothing to anybody, right? So supporting the community and all of that means just as much to me as it does to actually practice and get out there and be the best, so lately I've been working on a lot of stuff to kind of get that done. I kind of have that attitude anyway, but like, if you come up to me and you need something in the field, I'll probably just give it to you if you really need it. I'm just that kind of guy. So when it comes to, like, if somebody's asking me for advice or stuff like that, especially if it really is not much of my time to help you out, I will. And that's really kind of what I've been focusing on. I've been working recently with a company called Pretty Fly FPV. They produce certain merchandise like goggle straps and lanyards and stuff, and sort of expanding a product line. But it's not really the vision that I worked out with Christopher, who's the designer and CEO at Pretty Fly, is something different than just making a quick buck off of merchandise. The whole pillar behind it is again supporting that community and really fostering an environment for professional drone racing, because like I said, at the end of the day, who's going to pay your rent? Who's going to pay your electricity bill? Who's going to buy you batteries or give you a new motor when you bust one at the race? Because racing drones already costs a bunch of money. A lot of guys substitute their time for a job, right? But it's an extra sacrifice if you try to go as far as sacrificing that time at the job to actually just dedicate to drone racing, right? If you do that, you might be in the top of the top, right? And I'm good, and I'm not the top of the top. I know who is, and I'd love to fly with them at all opportunities, because every time I do, I find myself getting better and better and approaching that. But I never consider myself top of the top. I'm always racing myself. I was trying to compete with what I see myself being in the future. So there's never an end in sight for me. I'm not concerned about that, right? What I'm concerned about with is just making sure that I can stay neck and neck with those guys who are at the top, right? Who are in that top 5. And to do that, you need to dedicate all your time. These days, professional drone racing is a thing. Like, I see people on Twitter being like, what, professional drone racing? That's so weird. That's so dumb. How can people just do that all day, fly drones around all day? Like, the reality is, I don't really understand how everybody does it. I have my own way of doing it, which involves, just barely making it by the way that I do. But I'm trying to make a way, right? So I've been working with Pretty Fly, and we've been working on this affiliate program that gives pilots a certain amount of cash back for these merchandise sales. And these goggle strap designs are super dope. I mean, the designer is one of the top web designers in the world right now, in the US for certain. Totally crazy designs he's been coming up with. He made my logo personally. If you go, you can check it out on my YouTube channel or on my Instagram or whatever. It's like a really sweet retro looking, like 32 bits of Gil with the signature chicken that I have, an 8-bit chicken on the logo. And he just did that for me as a gift, and was kind enough to do that. And that in itself was enough for me to trust him enough to start working with him. And we've been doing a lot ever since to get that dream out. But, when just the other day when we had a race in Castroville, Texas, I brought a giant printed check from Pretty Fly that was for the first place winner and everything. And, I was super happy to be able to present it to a good friend of mine, Ivan, who's NV Astro. You may know him as the collegiate 2016 champion for multi-GP. He is an incredible pilot, and I was happy to be able to welcome him to the team as one of the first guys to be on the Pretty Fly FPV affiliate program. So that's my dream right there, is to be able to take guys like him who are just, I say just a student in college, but realistically, that takes a lot of work out of your time, right? Just as much as any job or whatever.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But somebody who's dedicating their life to something already, and I want to be able to say, you have this option. You're really good at what you do. We'd like to support you. I'd like to stand behind you. Will you be with us? Will you fly with us? And, that was a pleasure and an honor to be able to present to Ivan, especially somebody that I've known and watched grow and learn in this community for so long. So I look forward to doing more on that aspect, to be able to give more pilots the opportunity. And, not just with Pretty Fly FPV, not just by goggle straps and such, but, setting an example myself, like the guys that I looked up to when I was starting, Sean Taylor, all of these other guys, you can't even name, Brian Morris. I've mentioned so many names already, but all of these guys that I looked up to, they represent this role model that so many of, these young guys that are coming in, or, these new guys look up to. It's just being, professional. And you can really see they embody what that means in the drone racing world, what that interpretation is here.
Definitely. That is awesome. So Pretty Fly, is it prettyfly.com to get the goggle straps?
If you want to head over to their website, that's prettyflyfpv.com. You can also use my affiliate link code, which is just prettyflyfpv.com, and you put a / after that, 32 bits. Boom.
All right. Pretty cool.
Get you there. Anything you buy from there obviously goes to benefit me professionally racing drones. And I obviously encourage you to pick up on Ivan's link as well whenever he gets his made, which should be in a couple of days here.
Pretty awesome. Is it like Fat Shark goggle straps, or what kind of straps are we talking about?
Man, do yourself a favor. Go to the website right now. Take a look. The designs are awesome.
It's the goggle, the straps, the lanyards.
Oh, okay. Hey,
remember?
You know what? I need a better lanyard. So, yeah.
Well, these aren't just like kind of like underwear type material with like printout on them. These are high quality, good material, like nice, soft, comfortable velvet on the neck straps. We've got a really durable material that stretches out really nice, doesn't like distort the design or anything for the goggle head straps and such. And I've got the oldest ones. So I've got like the first samples, and I'm proud to say that even though they were samples and they were a little bit different on the dimensions that we wanted and such, they still are holding up just fine. The colors are just, they haven't faded away or anything. These are you get radio lanyards. I have my favorite is the Louis V, the radio lanyard, and then I have a personal 32 bits of Gil strap that's a one of a kind for my sample. But nice. I should be coming out with the affiliate series one soon enough, so you'll be able to get like the 8-bit chicken is I think what we're gonna do. We're gonna do 8-bit chicken on the outside, and it's gonna be racing around the strap.
That's pretty awesome. Okay, so I gotta ask. This is the last question. I'll let you go because I want to respect your time. How did you get your pilot handle 32 bits of Gil? Where did you come up with that?
So it's a funny story. Obviously, my background is kind of gaming, and I'm always kind of a techie nerd type. But that was my handle before all of this drone racing business started. Okay. Was 32 bits of Gil, and I was looking for something to use when I was first getting started. That first time I went to a race, I was like, what? I have to have a pilot name and blah, blah, blah. I was like, why can't I just be Gilbert? Like, and I thought about using just like Gil FPV or Gilbert or just, just my name. And it just sounded so weird. And I didn't want people knowing me as like, my name, because everybody else had all these cool like names and stuff. So I was like, oh, I'll use my gamer name. And it sort of stuck. I thought about changing it. I have almost changed it multiple times, or shortened it or revised it, but I stuck with it mainly because I eventually worked out that the flight controller that we use obviously is a 32-bit flight controller, right. And if you're flying one of these 32-bit flight controllers in the way that I wanted to when I first started, was just for purpose of freedom and for fun and to feel like a bird in your dreams, that I was going to continue with that name because, you were getting a 32-bit expression of me.
Oh,
right?
nice.
Anytime that I'm doing like freestyle and stuff, I'm more of a grand gesture type pilot. I do a lot of slow freestyle. I'm not all about like flipping around and stuff. I do a lot of like just flying around in nice locations and just being free and being able to do what I want. So anybody that enjoys watching that stuff, happens to click on my video, that's just how I've been flying since I started, and that's why I stuck with the name.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Like a lot of people, when I ask them that question, there's not that good of a story behind it, but that's a pretty cool story.
It is right there.
Oh yeah, there you go. He sent me one of your pictures. He's already shopping on the website. He's gonna have like 12 straps by the time we get off this.
Well, you do get a deal if you buy 10 of them. You get your 11th for free. So if you want to be a collector, they are limited edition. They're never going to be printed again. Once you buy them and they're out of stock, they're out of stock forever.
Oh, wow. Nice.
New designs coming out all the time.
That's pretty cool. I like that. All right, so let's go ahead and start wrapping up. So if people want to follow you or people want to just find your content, where can they find your content?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram. That's mainly where I'm active, but I also have a YouTube channel and a Facebook page. So it's just 32BitsOfGil, 32BitsOfGil, no spaces, 1L, GIL. It's really simple. It's all the same across that, so you should be able to find me on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. And I guess you could follow me on Twitter if you really want to. I don't tweet very often.
Nobody's on Twitter.
But if that's your thing...
The president is.
yeah, right.
Not in the racing community. Nobody's on Twitter. Nobody cares. It's mostly Instagram.
And I guess, I just want to give one more big thank you to all my sponsors and stuff. I would not be here or doing as well as I am today without all of the people that supported me. I've already mentioned a couple of you guys, Flanoceros, Josh, you've been a huge help. Preston Garrison and the whole Garrison family at Raceflight, including Kaylin. You guys have been awesome, been a big help for me. Everybody at FPV Direct that's helped me over the years, including Keith and Danny from FPV Direct.
Yeah, we know them. Yeah.
All of those guys. Yeah, including freaking Trappy from Team Black Sheep has been a huge supporter of me lately. Has been helping me out when I really needed it the most. All of these guys have been stepping in. Christopher from Pretty Fly, Serge from Pyroflip has offered to sponsor me for motors recently. It has been such a huge help lately. And then, Wilson from Electrify RC and Burst previously from Electrify RC. Super awesome guys. I got to give a shout out to my homies in Austin, Zero Ground and Broken Prop Crew, and everybody who's been a good friend of mine in Austin has been standing behind me since I started. You guys are the reason why I continue to do this, and my sponsors as well. You guys are the reason why I can continue to stay racing and competitive and actually manage to continue having fun in a sport like this. And I'm really fortunate that I and blessed to be in a situation like that and to have people like that surround me.
That's an awesome story right there, because, that's what it takes. It takes sponsors helping out pilots and pilots growing the community. And if everybody does their job, we'll actually have a future.
Right.
And just one more personal, Ryan Gurry from DRL was a big inspiration and a big help to me getting into DRL. If it wasn't for him, I would not be on ESPN or have the confidence that I do today to continue on a career that I never thought I would have.
Awesome. There you go, folks. A lot of people to thank. That's what it takes to get anywhere in life. You got to work with people.
We wish you a lot more luck, man, in the future, and positive vibrations going at you,
Thanks for having me on, you guys. You are awesome hosts, and I love the show so much.
Thank you so much. And you know what? Hopefully we can have you on a little bit later on, and we can catch back up after the series wraps up and see what you're doing afterwards.
Hey, I'm down. I'm down. No problem. If you guys want to catch up with me, just, I'm on all the time.
Cool, man. Awesome. All right, we're cutting out. Thank you so much for showing up, and this is the end of this podcast.
Bye, folks.